Either that or it was a pumpkin. A fresh fountain of sparks now burst from the firework, and Harvey saw the truth of the matter. The limb he held was a stuffed trouser leg, the body a coat spilling bundles of clothes, that head a mask on a pumpkin with cream for spittle and eggs for eyes. Wendell! He yelled, turning his back on the scene of execution. Wendell was standing on the far side of the firework, his ear-to-ear grin lit by its spitting sparks. He looked like a little demon fresh from the inferno. At his side was the ladder that came crashing down to get the drama underwear. I warned you, Wendell said, holding up his mask. I said I was going to be a hangman tonight. I'll get you back for this, Harvey said, his heart still beating too fast for him to see the funny side of this. I swear, I'll get you back. You can try, Wendell crowed. The firework was beginning to fizzle out, the shadows around them beginning to deepen again. Had enough of Halloween for tonight? He asked. Harvey didn't much like admitting defeat, but he nodded grimly, swearing to himself that when he finally got his revenge, it would be choice. Smile, Wendell said as the fountain of sparks dwindled. We're in the holiday house. The light had almost gone, and even though Harvey was still enraged at Wendell and at himself for being such a sucker, he couldn't let it die away without making peace. All right, he said, allowing himself a tiny smile. All right, there'll be other nights. Always, said Wendell. The reply pleased him. That's what this place is, he said as the light went out. It's the house of always. What? Look at the title. The Thief of Always? And the last line of chapter 5? No, chapter 6. I keep messing it up. The last line in chapter 6 says, it's the house of always. Whoa, I'm totally put a posted on that one. That has to mean something, because that's deep. And we end chapter 6 with that image again. That was a fun chapter. Whew, chapter 6 was a good one. Halloween. Harvey got scared. I hope you're taking notes down. I would. I mean, that was big. The House of Always. The Thief of Always. Is there a connection? Chapter 7. A present from the past. And this is what it looks like. Dun, 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 dun. Could it be the holiday house is already changing? There was a Thanksgiving feast awaiting them when they got back into the house. What? They're outside doing Halloween and they come back as Thanksgiving? Imagine us if we lived like that. You look as though you've been in the wars, Miss Griffin remarked when she set eyes on Harvey. Has Wendell been up to his tricks? Harvey admitted that he'd fallen for all of them, but there was one that impressed him in particular. What was that? Said Wendell with a smug grin. The fallen ladder? That was a clever little touch, wasn't it? No, not the ladder, said Harvey. Well, what then? The thing in the sky. Oh, that. What was it? A kite? That wasn't my doing, Wendell replied. Well, what was it then? I don't know, Wendell said, his smile disappearing. Better not to ask, eh? But I want to know, Harvey insisted, turning to Mrs. Griffin. It had wings, and I think it flew off the roof. Then it was a bat, Miss Griffin said. No, this was 100 times bigger than a bat. He spread his arms, like great dark wings. Miss Griffin frowned as Harvey spoke. You imagine that, she said. I did not, Harvey protested. Why don't you just sit down and eat, Miss Griffin replied. If it wasn't a bat, then it wasn't anything at all. But Wendell saw it too, didn't you, Wendell? He looked around at the other boy, who was digging into a steaming plate of turkey and cranberry sauce. He's always eating. Who cares? Wendell said, chewing as he spoke. Just tell her you saw it. Wendell shrugged. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. It's Halloween night. There's supposed to be boogeymen out there. It's not real one, said Harvey. And trick's one thing, but if that beast was real... As he spoke, he realized he was breaking the rule he made on the porch. Whether the winged creature was real or not, it didn't matter. This was a place of illusions. Back to my setting. This place. Illusions, like magic. You know, when you do magic tricks, it's like, how did that happen? Wouldn't he be happier here if you just stopped questioning what was real and what wasn't? Sit down and eat, Miss Griffin said again. Harvey shook his head. His appetite had disappeared. Maybe at Wendell for his... No, he was angry, though. He wasn't quite sure at whom. Maybe at Wendell for his shrugs, or at Mrs. Griffin for not believing in him, or at himself for being afraid of illusions, or maybe all three. I'm going up to my room to change, he said, and left the kitchen. He discovered Lulu on the landing, staring out the window. Wind gusted against the glass, reminding Harvey of Rictus's first visit. It wasn't rain. The gusts were bringing, however, it was a powdery snow. It'll be Christmas soon, she said. Will it? Yep, there'll be presents for everyone. They always are. You should wish for something. Is that what you're doing? She shook her head. No, she said. I've been here so long, I've got everything I ever wanted. Would you like to see? Harvey said yes, and she led him up the stairs to her room, which was immense and filled with her treasures. She obviously had a passion for boxes. Tiny jeweled boxes, large card boxes, a box for a collection of glass bowls, a box that played tinkling music, a box into which 100 smaller boxes fitted. She also had several families of dolls who sat in blank-faced rows around the walls. But more impressive by far was the house from which the dolls had been exiled. It stood in the middle of the room, 5 feet high from step to chimney top, every detail of brick, slate, and still perfect. This is where I keep my friends, Lulu said, and she opened the front door. 2 bright green lizards came out to greet her, scurrying up her arms onto her shoulders. The rest are inside, she said. Take a look. Harvey peered through the windows and found that every perfect room in the house was occupied. There were lizards lounging on the beds, lizards snoozing in the baths, lizards swinging from the chandeliers. He laughed out loud at their antics. Aren't they fun? Lulu said. Great, he replied. You can come and play with them anytime you want. Thanks. They're really very friendly. They only bite when they're hungry. Here. She plucked one off her shoulder and dropped it into Harvey's hands. It promptly ran up and perched his head, much to Lulu's amazement. They enjoyed the company of both the lizards and each other for a long while until Harvey caught a glimpse of his reflection in one of the windows and remembered what a sight he was. Whew, I better go and wash, he told Lulu. I'll see you later. She smiled at him. I like you, Harvey Swick, she said. Her honesty made him honest. I like you too, he told her. Then, his expression darkening, he said, I wouldn't want anything to happen to you. And she looked puzzled. I saw you at the lake, he said. Did you? She replied. I don't remember. Well, anyway, it's deep. You should be careful. You could slip and fall in. I'll be careful, she said, as he opened the door. Oh, and Harvey? Yes? Don't forget to wish for something. What shall I ask for, he wondered, as he washed the dirt off his face. Something impossible, maybe, to see just how much magic the house possessed. A white tiger, perhaps? A full-size Zeppelin? A ticket to the moon? The answer came from the depths of his memory. He'd wished for a present he'd been given and lost a long time ago. A present that his father had made for him, which Mr. Hood, however much he might want to please his new guest, would never, ever be able to duplicate. Make a copy. The Ark, he murmured. With his face washed and his scratches he got from the thorns in the thicket worn like war wounds, he headed back downstairs to find that once again the house had performed an extraordinary transformation. A Christmas tree so tall that the star at its summit pricked the ceiling stood in the hallway, the colors of his twinkling lights seeping into every room. There was a smell of chocolate in the air and the sound of carols being sung. In the living room, Mrs. Griffin was sitting beside a roaring fire with Stu Cat purring on her lap. Wendell's gone outside, she told Harvey. There's a scarf and gloves for you by the front door. Harvey went out onto the porch. The wind was icy, but it was already clearing the snow clouds, leaving the stars to shine down on a perfect white carpet. Wow, not quite perfect. A trail of tracks led down from the house to the spot where Wendell was building a snowman. Coming out? No, who's this? Coming out, he hollered to Harvey, his voice as clear as the bells that were ringing through the crisp air. Harvey shook his head. He was so tired, even the snow looked comfortable. Maybe tomorrow, he said. I'll be back. It'll be back tomorrow, won't it? Of course, Wendell yelled. And the night after, and the night after, and the night after. Harvey went back inside to look at the Christmas tree. Its branches were hung with strings of popcorn and cranberries, with colored lights and baubles and soldiers in gleaming silver uniforms. There's something under there for you, Miss Griffin said, standing at the living room door. I hope it's what you want, sweetie. Harvey knelt down and pulled a parcel with his name on it from under the tree. His pulse quickened before he even opened it because he knew from its shape and from the way it rattled that his wish had been answered. He pulled at the string, remembering as he did so how much littler his hands had been the first time he held his gift. The paper tore and fell away, and there, shiny and new, was a painted wooden ark. It was a perfect copy of the one his father had made. The same yellow hull, the same orange prow, the same wheelhouse with holes in its red roof for the giraffes to put their heads through. The same lead animals, all in pairs, snug in the hold or peering through the portholes. 2 dogs, 2 elephants, 2 camels, 2 doves, all these and a dozen more. And finally, the same little Noah with his square white beard and his fat wife, complete with apron. How did he know? Harvey murmured. He hadn't intended the question to be heard, much less answered. But Miss Griffin said, Mr. Hood knows every dream in your head. But this is perfect, Harvey said in amazement. Look, my dad ran out of blue paint when he was finishing the elephants, so one of them has blue eyes and the other one has green eyes. It's the same. It's exactly the same. Does it please you then? Miss Griffin asked. Harvey said he did, but that wasn't entirely the truth. It was eerie to have the ark back in his hands when he knew the real one had been lost, as though time had been turned on its heels and he was a little kid again. He heard Wendell stamping the snow off his feet at the front door and was suddenly embarrassed to have such a childish present in his hands. He gathered it up in his wrapping and hurried upstairs, intending to head back down for some supper. But his bed looked so too welcoming to be refused, and his stomach quite full enough for one night. So instead he closed the curtains on the gusty night and laid his head down on his pillow. The Christmas bells were still ringing in some distant steeple, and their repetition lulled him into a sleep. He dreamed that he was standing on the steps of his house, looking through the open door into his warm heart. Then the wind caught hold of him, turning him from the threshold and carrying him away into a dreamless sleep. And that's the end of chapter 7. And we're left with this image again. It seems to be a pattern. And there's also another image I want to show you. It looks like Lulu's lizards. They look like iguanas. And they're hanging out on top of, I don't know, some kind of box or maybe the ark. I'm not sure. And I just give you a sneak peek for chapter 8, 9, and 10. We're going to be reading. Chapter 8 is called Hungry Waters. And I just want you to take a look at the picture. And what do you see? Make some predictions of what you think we're going to be encountering next at this surprisingly perfect holiday house.